You ever feel like there's something everyone's been hiding from you? Like the world's been playing some long, cruel joke, and you're the only one who didn't get the punchline. You walk through life smiling, pretending you understand how it all works, but deep down, you don't. You sense it, that itch in your chest that says something isn't right. People talk, they lie. They distract you with promises, with comfort, with noise, but no one ever tells you the truth. Not the real one, the kind that doesn't sound beautiful, but burns. Funny thing about truth, it's always been there, hiding in plain sight. You walk past it every day, talk over it, laugh around it, but you never really see it. Not because it's invisible, but because you were never taught how to look. They trained your eyes to see distraction as reality and reality as madness. You were told what to believe before you even knew how to think. The system, the people, the rules, all whispering the same lullaby. Don't question, just follow. And you did. You followed. Because that's what good people do, right? They obey. They fit in. They conform. But in the process, you traded curiosity for comfort, and that's how they kept you asleep. They built your world like a stage, with props and actors, and you clapped along, believing it was real. They told you success means money, happiness means approval, love means possession, and you bought it, every bit of it. You measured your worth through other people's eyes, and you called it ambition. You killed your silence with noise, your thoughts with entertainment, your soul with validation, and you called it living. But deep down, you knew something was off. You felt it in the pit of your stomach. That slight twist when you smiled for pictures. That empty space when you got what you wanted and still felt nothing. That wasn't failure. That was truth, whispering, "Wake up." You see, truth doesn't hide. It waits. It waits for the moment when your illusions start to crack, when the fake smiles stop working, when the people you trusted show their masks, when the things you thought mattered begin to rot. That's when it shows up. Not with light, but with chaos. Because truth doesn't arrive gently. It dismantles. It tears through your comforts, your excuses, your false sense of control. And when it does, you'll hate it. You'll resist it. You'll call it unfair, cruel, unbearable. But that's how truth always feels at first, like destruction. Only later do you realize it was reconstruction. You were told that questioning is dangerous. That doubt means weakness. But it's the opposite. Doubt is the seed of clarity. The ones who question are the only ones who ever find answers. Everyone else just repeats what they've been told, generation after generation, building their lives on borrowed beliefs. You've been worshiping structures that were never built for you. School systems that teach obedience, jobs that drain purpose, religions that manipulate fear, governments that sell illusion. And every time someone tries to look deeper, they're labeled as lost, broken, rebellious. Because truth threatens the system. And awareness is the one thing the system can't control. It's not that they hid the truth. It's that they made you too distracted to see it. They gave you constant noise, endless scrolling, fake goals, cheap pleasures. They fed you enough comfort to keep you quiet, but not enough to make you free. You started confusing stimulation for happiness, attention for love, success for meaning. You built your identity out of reflections, other people's opinions, society's standards, numbers on screens. But none of it was ever all you. You've been running from emptiness when that emptiness was the doorway back to yourself. The real tragedy isn't that you were lied to. It's that you accepted the lie because it was easier than starting over. You convinced yourself ignorance is peace, when really, it's just a slower form of dying. The truth doesn't destroy your life. It destroys your illusions. And that's what you're really afraid of losing. You say you want clarity, but you want it without consequences. You want to see without letting go. But it doesn't work that way. Once you start to see, once you peel back the layers, everything changes. You can't unhear the truth. You can't unknow it. You can't go back to pretending. They didn't need to chain you. They just needed to teach you to doubt your own mind, to make you afraid of being different, afraid of being alone, afraid of being wrong. So you played along. You smiled when you were breaking. You stayed silent when your soul screamed. You became everything they said you should be, and nothing you actually are. And now, here you are, halfway between who you were told to be and who you truly are. The truth is pulling, but fear is holding. You can feel the tension inside you, that war between comfort and awakening. And maybe that's what this moment is. Maybe that's why this message found you. Because you've reached the point where the lies no longer fit. The world feels heavier, the faces feel faker, the noise feels unbearable. You're not losing your mind. You're starting to see. You're noticing how everything connects, how everything's been orchestrated to keep you distracted, obedient, quiet. You're not crazy for sensing it. You're waking up to it. The truth isn't some secret waiting to be uncovered. It's been staring at you all along, waiting for the moment you'd finally be brave enough to look it in the eye. You ever wonder why people are so afraid to be honest? Not with others, with themselves. Because truth doesn't flatter. It doesn't pat your back and tell you everything's fine. It looks you dead in the eyes and says, "You've been lying to yourself." And people hate that. They'd rather build a fantasy, dress it up, and live inside it than face what's real. That's why the world is full of smiling faces, hiding empty hearts. Everyone's pretending they're okay, chasing approval, chasing status, chasing anything that makes the silence quieter. Because the silence is where the truth lives, and nobody wants to sit with it. You keep scrolling, laughing, talking, working, posting, anything to avoid that moment when it's just you and your thoughts. Because when it's quiet, you hear the truth knocking, that soft, unwanted voice whispering, "This isn't who you are." You try to drown it with noise, numb it with distractions, but it always finds a way back in. That's why no matter how much you achieve, there's still that emptiness sitting behind your smile. You think more money will fix it, more attention, more recognition. But it doesn't, because it's not a hole in your life. It's a hole in your soul. The world taught you to wear masks. Be polite. Be perfect. Be predictable. Don't show weakness. Don't question the script. You learn to act before you learn to feel. To say what's expected, not what's true. You even started believing your own performance. You wake up every day rehearsing lines you didn't write. Lines about success, love, purpose. All borrowed from someone else's dream. You've become so used to pretending that you call it being normal. But there's nothing normal about burying your own truth just to fit into a world that's already sick. They told you that vulnerability is weakness, that emotions make you fragile, that truth makes you dangerous. But what they didn't tell you is that pretending makes you hollow. You think you're protecting yourself by hiding, but you're just slowly disappearing. Every time you lie to yourself, a piece of you fades. Every time you stay quiet when you should speak, your spirit dims. You're not protecting yourself from pain. You're surrendering your soul to fear. And fear is a clever master. It whispers that comfort equals safety, that silence equals peace. But it's a lie. Comfort is the cage. Silence is the lock. You see, honesty doesn't destroy you. It frees you. But the process hurts. Because to be honest, you have to admit how much time you've wasted, how many chances you've missed, how many times you betrayed yourself just to please others. That's the hardest part. Realizing the prison was never around you. It was inside you, built by your choices, maintained by your fears. You held the keys the whole time, but were too scared to use them. Because freedom means responsibility. It means facing who you really are when the masks fall off. Everyone wants change, but nobody wants to be honest about why they're stuck. You say you want peace, but you hold grudges. You say you want love, but you keep chasing validation. You say you want success, but you're addicted to comfort. You can't heal from what you refuse to confront. You keep blaming the world, blaming luck, blaming timing, but deep down, you know, it's you. You're the one standing in your own way. The lies you tell yourself every day are heavier than the truth you're running from. And it's funny, isn't it? The moment you decide to be honest, the world turns against you. People start calling you cold, arrogant, crazy, because truth makes them uncomfortable. They've built their peace on illusion, so your honesty feels like an attack. But that's the price of seeing clearly. You stop belonging where blindness is comfort. That's why most people never wake up. It's easier to live in a lie that everyone agrees with than a truth that makes you stand alone. But the thing about honesty is, once you taste it, even a little, you can't go back. It burns at first, but then it cleanses. It strips you down until there's nothing left to hide behind. No fake smiles, no excuses, no pretending. Just raw, uncomfortable clarity. And that's where real power begins. Because when you stop lying to yourself, nobody can manipulate you anymore. They can't guilt you, can't shame you, can't control you. You become unpredictable, unbreakable, alive. You'll start noticing the lies everywhere, In the ads, the news, the people, the conversations. You'll see how everyone's just performing, desperate to look happy, while silently crumbling inside. You'll realize you don't fit in anymore because you stopped needing to. The truth isolates you before it liberates you. But that isolation isn't punishment. It's purification. It's the moment you stop chasing illusions and start building something real. And maybe that's the secret they never wanted you to know. That all your power, all your peace, all your meaning, it's been waiting on the other side of honesty. Not the kind you post online, not the kind you use to impress people, but the kind that burns away everything false. The kind that hurts before it heals. The kind that forces you to see yourself, not the version the world made, but the one that's been waiting to be free. Reality. What a funny word, isn't it? Everyone thinks they're living in it. But most people are trapped in a version of it, built on lies, comfort, and habit. You think you see the world for what it is, but really, you see it through the fog of your own expectations. You've been told what's normal, what's good, what's successful. And without even realizing it, you started chasing that picture like it was your own dream. But the cruel part, that picture was never yours. It was painted by people who needed you to believe in it, so you'd stay where you are. Predictable, manageable, easy to control. You wake up, follow the same routine, talk about the same meaningless things, pretend to care about the same shallow goals. You call it stability, but it's stagnation. You call it life, but it's performance. You've been hypnotized into believing that reality is just what you see. The bills, the job, the screens, the endless loop. But reality is deeper, darker, sharper than that. It doesn't care about your plans, your excuses, or your fragile comfort. It waits for the moment when you're no longer distracted, when the noise fades. And that's when it shows its face. And when it does, it doesn't come gently. It doesn't whisper. It crashes into you. You lose someone, you fail, you fall, and suddenly the pretty illusion shatters. That's the moment you meet reality. Not the filtered, sugar-coated version, but the raw, cold, unfiltered truth. The one that doesn't care about how hard you tried or how much you believed. It just stares at you and says, "Now what?" And that's where most people break. Because they realize the life they built wasn't built on truth. It was built on denial. You see, illusions are comfortable because they make you feel safe. They tell you that things will work out if you just stay patient. If you keep pretending, if you keep smiling. They whisper that you're doing fine, even when you're not. But reality doesn't play that game. It exposes you. It strips away the fake confidence, the fake friends, the fake dreams. It takes away everything you were hiding behind and forces you to look at yourself, not the polished version, but the one you've been avoiding. That's why people fear honesty, because it destroys everything that isn't real. And that destruction, that's where transformation starts. Because when the illusion dies, something inside you wakes up. You start to see that pain isn't punishment, it's revelation. Every heartbreak, every failure, every disappointment is reality trying to pull you closer to truth. You just misread it. You thought life was attacking you, but it was actually trying to free you. It was trying to tear down everything false so that you could finally build something real. But you fought it, didn't you? You clung to your illusions like a child holding a broken toy, whispering, "It's mine. It's easier to stay blind." That's why most people never change. They'll blame the world, blame others, blame fate. Anything but themselves. Because facing reality means taking responsibility. And responsibility is heavy. It means admitting that nobody's coming to save you. It means seeing that your pain is your teacher, your fear is your test, and your failures are your mirrors. Reality doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to wake you up. But waking up hurts, especially when you've been dreaming for so long. You start noticing how fake everything feels. The conversations, the smiles, the ambitions. You realize most people don't actually want the truth. They just want something that feels nice. They want comfort dressed as meaning. They'll tell you to be positive, to stay calm, to go with the flow, because they're terrified of what happens when the flow ends. They're terrified of stillness, because stillness exposes reality. And the moment you stop running, you see it. The emptiness behind all the noise, the pointlessness behind the pretending. But here's the thing, reality isn't your enemy. It's your rawest ally. It's the one thing that doesn't lie to you. It doesn't promise you happiness, but it promises you clarity. And clarity, that's worth everything. Because once you see things as they are, not as you wish they were, you become dangerous. You stop being manipulated by illusions, by people, by systems. You stop chasing what doesn't matter and start building what does. You stop running from pain and start learning from it. You stop existing and start living. That's when you realize reality isn't cruel, it's cleansing. It strips you bare not to break you, but to rebuild you. It forces you to grow, to toughen, to evolve. Because truth doesn't make you soft, it makes you strong. You can't be destroyed by what you've already faced. Once you've looked at life without flinching, nothing can scare you anymore. You stop needing validation, approval, or permission. You stop apologizing for seeing too clearly. You stop begging for peace from a world built on chaos, and instead, you find it inside yourself, where reality always wanted you to look. That's the thing about seeing reality for what it is. It doesn't make life easier, but it makes it real. And real is all you've ever needed. Because once the illusions fade, there's no going back. You can't unsee what's true. You can't unknow what you've learned. You can only move forward, stripped, scarred, awake, and finally alive. You wait your whole life for the right moment, don't you? You tell yourself you'll change when it's time, when things calm down, when you're ready. But the truth is, that moment never comes. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It waits for you to be honest. That's the real turning point. Not when you get your big break, not when someone gives you permission, but when you finally stop lying to yourself. You've built this illusion that change is something gentle, something that happens when everything lines up just right. But it doesn't. Change happens when the lie becomes too heavy to carry. When the noise inside your head gets too loud to ignore. When pretending starts to feel like dying. You keep telling yourself stories, don't you? I'll start when I have more time. Ooh, I'll speak up when I'm stronger. Ooh, I'll leave when I'm certain. But that's how you trap yourself. That's how life slips through your fingers while you wait for a perfect moment that doesn't exist. Because life doesn't shift when you're comfortable. It shifts when you're desperate enough to stop lying. You say you want peace, but you cling to the chaos you've grown used to. You say you want truth, but you run from anything that threatens your illusion. You say you want to move forward, but you keep dragging your past behind you like a trophy of pain. You've mistaken control for safety. You think that by holding on, you're protecting yourself from failure. But control is the biggest illusion there is. You don't control life. You only delay its lessons. You can resist the truth, deny it, fight it, but it always wins in the end. It waits, it watches. It lets you exhaust yourself, trying to build walls against what's meant to come through. And when those walls finally crumble, you realize something. Life was never against you. You were against yourself. You were so afraid of the unknown that you'd rather stay in pain you understand than walk into peace you don't. That's why honesty feels so uncomfortable. Because once you admit the truth, there's no turning back. Once you say, I'm not happy, you can't pretend anymore. Once you realize, this isn't love, you can't keep holding on. Once you see, this path isn't mine, you can't unsee it. Awareness ruins illusions, and that's why people choose blindness. Because it's easier to keep pretending everything's fine than to rebuild everything from the ground up. But deep down, you know, pretending is killing you. Slowly, quietly. You're smiling in public and suffocating in private. Laughing on the outside, rotting on the inside. You see, life doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your growth. It will keep breaking you in the same place until you learn what it's trying to teach you. It'll send the same pain in different faces, the same lesson in new disguises. Because pain isn't punishment, it's direction. It's life saying, you're not where you're supposed to be. But you label it as unfair, unlucky, undeserved. You don't realize it's the wake up call you begged for. You asked for strength. Life gave you struggle. You asked for truth. Life took away your illusions. You asked for peace. Life destroyed your distractions. But you were too focused on the loss to see the message. Change doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes disguised as chaos. It takes everything familiar and flips it upside down. It strips you of what you thought you needed so you can finally see what you actually do. And in those moments, when everything's falling apart, when you can't recognize your own reflection, when you think it's all over, that's when it's beginning. That's when the old version of you is dying. The version built on fear, on lies, on survival. The version that settled, stayed quiet, and accepted less. That version can't come with you. That's why it hurts. You're not losing your life. You're shedding your disguise. You've been taught that honesty is dangerous, that truth costs too much, that real change should be slow and polite. But life doesn't deal in politeness. It deals in necessity. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It forces you to become ready. Every breakdown you've had wasn't a collapse. It was a correction. Every disappointment wasn't rejection. It was redirection. You just didn't see it because you were too busy trying to save the version of your life that was never real. And you keep wondering why things repeat. Why you keep meeting the same kind of people, facing the same kind of losses, feeling the same kind of emptiness. It's because you haven't learned the lesson. You keep repainting the same broken wall instead of tearing it down. You can't fix what was built on lies. You can't evolve while pretending everything's fine. You can't find truth while clinging to illusion. The longer you resist, the louder life gets. The longer you avoid the truth, the harsher it hits. That's why the shift never happens when you're comfortable. It happens when comfort starts to suffocate you, when you can't keep pretending, when you stop caring about appearances, approval, and fear, when you finally say, enough. That's the moment life starts to move. Not because the world changes, but because you do. Because you stop asking for the storm to pass and start learning how to walk through it. Because you stop hoping for peace and start creating it inside the chaos. Because you finally understand. Truth doesn't arrive wrapped in calm. It arrives dressed as destruction. And it only destroys what was never meant to last. You ever notice how the person you were a few years ago wouldn't even recognize you now? Not because you've grown, but because you've changed shape so many times just to survive. You've worn so many versions of yourself to fit into rooms that didn't deserve you, to please people who didn't value you, to chase things that never truly mattered. And you call it growth, but it's not. It's survival. The version of you that brought you here did what it had to do. It smiled when it was breaking. It worked when it was empty. It believed when it was being used. But that version can't take you any further. It was built for survival, not success. For pain, not purpose. You keep clinging to it, though. The habits, the fears, the old wounds. They've become familiar. You've mistaken them for identity. You say things like, "That's just who I am," or "I've always been this way," as if the past gets to define your future. But deep down, you know that voice in your head. The one that keeps whispering you're meant for more. It's not lying. It's the part of you that's outgrown the old version, screaming to be free. Yet, you silence it with doubt, with excuses, with routine. You tell yourself it's too risky to change, too late to start, too hard to rebuild. But what you're really afraid of isn't failure. It's transformation. Transformation means death. The death of who you used to be. And people don't talk about how brutal that is. Everyone glamorizes change like it's this beautiful sunrise, but it's not. It's a fire. It burns everything false. It takes your comfort, your control, your old identity, and sets it all on fire. And you stand there watching the pieces of your old life crumble, wondering if there's anything left of you underneath. That's the part no one warns you about. The part where you have to let go of everything that once made sense. The job that defines you, the people who shaped you, the beliefs that kept you safe. You lose them, and it feels like dying. But it's not death. It's rebirth.